Jim and the Little Dinosaur Ron. Chapter 1: A Strange Encounter by the Lake. 10-year-old Jim lived by the tranquil green lake, where the water was crystal clear and surrounded by dense forests. He often collected shells, caught small fish by the shore, and occasionally discovered strange little things. One evening, Jim spotted a peculiar rock in the shallow water. It was round, covered in scaly patterns, and seemed to be moving slightly. Curious, he crouched down and gently poked it. Suddenly, the rock stretched out 4 short legs and a tiny head, its dark, beady eyes staring right at him. "Whoa! What is this?" Jim exclaimed in surprise. It looked like a turtle, but its claws were slender, and its tail was thicker than an ordinary turtle's. The little creature didn't seem afraid of him. Instead, it nestled into Jim's palm. "Are you lost?" Jim whispered, carefully lifting it up. The little thing wriggled in his hand, as if pleased with its new friend. "All right, I'll take you home." Jim grinned, placing it into his small bucket and sneaking it back to his house. Chapter 2: The Mysterious Little Ron. Jim kept the little creature in his bathtub and named it Ron. At first, he thought Ron was some kind of turtle, but soon he realized something was off. Ron swam incredibly fast, darting through the water like a shadow, far quicker than any ordinary turtle. It didn't eat vegetables, but loved raw fish, which Jim secretly took from the fridge to feed it. Its claws were sharper than a turtle's, easily tearing through fish, and its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Jim grew more and more curious. "Ron, what exactly are you?" Chapter 3: Ron's Secret. One night, Jim secretly looked up information online and discovered that Ron's traits closely resembled an ancient creature, a descendant of the plesiosaur, a small aquatic dinosaur. "Oh my gosh! I've been raising a baby dinosaur." Jim was both shocked and thrilled, but he soon realized the problem. Ron was growing too fast. In just a few weeks, Ron went from the size of a palm to as big as a small dog. The bathtub could no longer hold him, so Jim had to hide him in a large tank in the basement. But Ron kept growing. Chapter 4: The Secret Can't Be Hidden. One day, Jim's mom finally discovered the tank in the basement. "Jim, what is this?" she gasped, staring in horror at the strange creature inside, now half a meter long, with a long neck and flipper-like limbs, nothing like a turtle. Jim had no choice but to confess, "Mom, this is Ron. I found him by the lake. He might be a kind of dinosaur." Jim's parents were stunned, but they quickly realized Ron didn't belong in the human world. He needed a much larger space to live. Chapter 5: Return to the Lake. With the help of a few trusted friends, Jim transported Ron back to Green Lake using a large cart. Standing by the shore, Jim crouched down and gently stroked Ron's head. "Ron, you'll have to learn to live on your own now," Jim said, fighting back tears. "You're too big for the house. But I'll come see you every day, okay?" Ron seemed to understand. He nuzzled Jim's hand, then turned and swam toward the deeper water. His figure moved gracefully through the lake, soon disappearing into the center. Chapter 6: The Guardian of the Lake. From that day on, Jim would run to the lake after school every day and whistle. Before long, Ron would poke his head out of the water and swim over cheerfully. Sometimes, he'd even bring Jim a fish, as if repaying his care. Gradually, rumors began spreading among the local fishermen. There's a mysterious water beast living in Green Lake, but it never hurts anyone. In fact, it chases away fish-stealing otters. Hearing these stories, Jim secretly smiled. He knew it was his friend Ron, a little dinosaur from ancient times, now the guardian of the lake. End of Part 1. Jim and the Little Dinosaur Ron. Part 2 minus. The Distant Guardian. Chapter 1: The Passing Years. Time flew by, and Jim, the boy who once found a tiny turtle by the lake, had grown into an 18-year-old young man. As for Ron, the little dinosaur that once fit in his palm, it had now grown as large as a small boat. Every holiday, Jim would return to Green Lake and blow his familiar whistle. Ripples spread across the water as Ron's massive figure slowly emerged, affectionately nuzzling Jim's hand with its snout. "Hey, old friend," Jim laughed, patting Ron's head. "Take me on an adventure today." Ron let out a low hum, signaling Jim to climb onto its back. Gripping its smooth scales, Jim held on as Ron flicked its tail and dove deep into the heart of the lake. Chapter 2: The Hidden Depths. The water was crystal clear, sunlight filtering through the surface in shimmering patterns. Ron led Jim past sunken logs, dark underwater caves, and even an ancient shipwreck. Schools of colorful fish swirled around them, as if welcoming their extraordinary friend. "It's beautiful," Jim gasped in awe. He had never imagined that beneath the lake he'd played in since childhood lay such a mysterious world. Ron proudly blew a stream of bubbles, as if saying, "This is my home, now it's your secret paradise too." Chapter 3: The Coming Storm. But their peace was short-lived. Ron's existence had begun to draw attention. First, fishermen spread rumors of a giant lake monster. Then, scientists and reporters came to investigate. Finally, the military got involved. They were convinced Ron was an undocumented species and decided to capture it for study. One evening, Jim saw the news: prehistoric creature discovered in Green Lake, military capture operation imminent. His heart sank. Chapter 4: The Final Goodbye. That night, Jim rowed a small boat to the center of the lake and blew his whistle one last time. Ron surfaced, its eyes filled with unease. "Ron!" Jim's voice trembled. "They're coming for you." Ron let out a low growl, gently nudging Jim as if asking, "What should I do?" Fighting back tears, Jim hugged Ron's neck. "You have to leave. Swim to the ocean. And never come back." Ron stared at him, its dark, gleaming eyes reflecting Jim's face. Then, with a long, mournful cry like a final farewell, it raised its head. Chapter 5: Breaking Through. At dawn the next day, military boats surrounded the lake, their sonar scanning for Ron's presence. Suddenly, a massive wave erupted from the center. Ron burst from the water, charging toward the river outlet with astonishing speed. "Stop it!" soldiers shouted, but Ron's strength was beyond their expectations. It rammed through the blockade, plunged into the depths, and followed the river toward the distant sea. Jim stood on the shore, tears blurring his vision. He knew this was Ron's only choice. Chapter 6: A Distant Call. Years later, Jim's family moved to the opposite shore of the lake. On quiet nights, he sometimes heard a familiar low hum echoing from the water. He'd walk to the window, gazing at the moonlit lake, and softly wave. Far in the darkness, a massive shadow silently rose, then slowly sank beneath the surface. Ron had never truly left. It had only hidden in deeper, farther waters. But its voice still carried through the lake, reaching Jim's heart. The end.